So everyone always asks if we were scared when we was in Afghanistan, but the truth is you don't really get the option to be. In order to be able to operate as a soldier, in order to be able to step foot out that gate every single day, multiple times a day on patrol, you firstly have to cross this threshold of acceptance in which you might not be coming back from that patrol. But at the same time, you also have to have complete belief and 100% confidence that you will be coming back from that patrol. And I believe that confidence comes from the men that are surrounding you, the calibre of the bullocks that are with you. And that's not only the confidence in their ability to operate in and win firefights, but mostly when the shit hits the fan and you do end up taking a casualty, you have complete belief that every man knows what he's doing. They've been through the training. You've all been through the same mission-specific training before tour, and then also every single time you go out on an operation on tour, you go through loud and quiet rehearsals. So you have complete confidence that every man knows what they're doing. And you know that if you yourself become a casualty, that your blokes know how to get you from point of explosion or point of injury back to a HLS on a helicopter and then straight back to an operating table as quick as they possibly can within the golden hour. And when you leave that gate, a lot of people feel like the men's lives are in the commander's hands, but it's not. It's every single man's lives are in each other's hands. And that's where, when you deploy with guys, that you end up getting this bond from. So those of you that know, I was in B Company before I went on tour, and that's where I initially would say that all my best friends were. But when you go on tour and you experience certain situations with guys, you end up forming this bond with them that's unexplainable. And that's not to say that they're better friends than your friends that you weren't on tour with. It's just you do create this bond with them. That's there for life. You feel it every time you see them. So when we was in Afghanistan, we stayed out in compounds, and the way you feel, I think, depends on where you're staying. So, for example, when we was with the Gurkhas, I was down in an OP, and an OP is like an observation post, and that can have anywhere between like 2 and 8 guys. So an OP's job is like an early warning, or maintaining eyes on the enemy locations, or just to hold ground, which is what we were doing when we was in Bahada. And the thing is, when you're in somewhere like that, is there's only like 6 to 8 blokes. Now, granted, you've got like guys that aren't too far away, like back in your main fobs or your PBs, but you are pretty isolated and you are pretty out on the ground on your own. And you know that if the Taliban really wanted to, and it's definitely happened in the past, in which they, gather their numbers and they build up like platoon strength size groups, and then they form their attacks, they're able to do so. So you know that that's always a possibility. But I suppose when I was there, I was surrounded by Gurkhas, so it probably made me feel a little bit more safer. So after an OP, you've got like a CP, and the CP is like a checkpoint which can have anywhere between 8 to 30 guys, which is what we was mostly in. And that's because we were operating in our platoon, and the platoon gets split into 2. So you have an Alpha multiple which goes with the boss, and then you get a Bravo multiple which goes with the platoon sergeant. And I was in Bravo multiple, so I went off with the platoon sergeant. But when we was with A Company, just for example, a checkpoint is a bit more built up than an OP, and you'll have a bit more area. So when we had our multiple, which is like 12 to 14 guys, and then we also had A platoon, 3 Company, Alpha multiple on the other side of the compound. So there was 28 blokes. And when there's that many of you and you're operating on like a platoon strength, you're not only able to hold the ground as we did when we was with the Gurkhas, but you're able to dominate it when you go out on patrols. And when you go out on patrols and you're with a multiple, you've not only got just your blokes around you and your confidence in them, you also know that if the shit hits the fan, you've got a whole nother multiple. So we had A Company back there waiting in QRF to come out and then give you either support or help out in any kind of serious situation. And then after a checkpoint, you kind of go up into like company level size places, which would be like a PB, so patrol base, and that's when we stayed when we was with like Clifton. So in there we had three rifle platoons. You got a HQ platoon with attachments with the engineers, and then also there's enough room for like a HLS. So you can imagine there's quite a large surface area, quite a large area that we're living in that compound, and you've also got an awful lot of manpower. So there's a lot of confidence when it comes in numbers, I think, as you move through operations on tour. And I found that when because I started off in an OP, and then I went into a CP, and then I went into a PB towards the end of tour. So I felt that difference in being surrounded by just my boys, just the Gurkhas, and then going into like a platoon strength location, and then going into a company strength location. The only times I'd say I really did feel the emotion of being scared, like actual scared, when I was on tour would be when November 20th, when Tom died, and in one of the recent episodes when I found myself sat outside the church. I wouldn't say it was sat there being scared in the sense of what we normally picture scared being as. It was probably more so sitting and being lost in my thoughts and having more fear for my life as opposed to being scared. And the next time I'd say I was probably maybe felt the emotion of being scared would be days after the 31st of January. my platoon sergeant got blown up, and we conducted the CASEVAC, and I'd say probably not in the moment on the day, there's no time or no bandwidth for that kind of thing, but definitely in the evenings on the days following, when I found myself sat on the HLS, I'd say probably the same kind of feeling. Either you could class it as being scared for your own life, though, you know, not scared to carry on doing the job. It's more so you just have that fear for your own life, and you know, you're picturing yourself hoping that you don't end up fucking getting killed. But yeah, so when it comes to asking people, you know, asking a soldier like, were you scared out there? For 99% of it, we probably weren't. It was more so you felt safe, you got no worries, you got no bills. It's you and the boys, you know, but it's at times you see some serious shit, and you know, that can kind of put some bit of scare into you, but there's never a time when you're too scared to then go out the next day and be ready for another fight, because we had a job to do, and you've got to carry on doing the same thing every single day until you get told you can go home. But yeah, thank you guys. See you next week.